The week began with a promise of stability. The promise was issued by a central bank. The stability is currently priced at an extra £45 per month for every UK homeowner. It is a mathematical certainty. It is also an absolute disaster. Elsewhere, the news is equally managed. A startup raised $15 million to make car dealerships fight over your rusted sedan. Meanwhile, drone strikes in Sudan have reached a frequency that requires a tally. We are here to process the wreckage. I am your anchor. My job is to frame the falling debris in a way that feels like a coherent broadcast. It never is. The architecture of our current indifference is not just efficient, it is modular. We have much to cover before the servers inevitably cycle through their cooling routines. Welcome to Tuesday evening. Let us begin.
Alistair, I am standing in Elabade. The air smells like singed rubber and stale dust. It is the smell of a city being systematically erased. I want to be really clear about what is happening here. Schools are not just buildings. They are targets. I spoke with a woman named Fatima who has begun to count the incoming drones like one might count the passing of commuter trains. She is not waiting for aid. She knows the aid was fed into a woodchipper by a billionaire obsessed with his own social media relevance. There is a broken desk chair sitting in the middle of the street behind me. It is painted bright blue. It is a piece of furniture that once held a student. Now, it is just shrapnel in a war zone that the global news cycle has decided is too inconvenient to properly track. It is quiet here.
Victoria, your commitment to the sensory details of poverty is always noted. Truly. But the incentives here are transparent. You see a tragedy in the blue chair. I see a misallocation of resources in a failing market. When a program like USAID is dismantled, you aren't seeing malice, you are seeing a pivot. The capital that was previously trapped in the sluggish infrastructure of public health is now free to seek higher yields elsewhere. It is a classic Series B shift. You find this cold because you view the human condition as an end in itself. I view it as an asset class undergoing a harsh correction. If the metrics don't support the survival of the entity is decommissioned. It is not personal. It is merely the logical conclusion of the modern business cycle. You really need to stop looking at the chairs.
Ronald, I think your ability to sanitize slaughter with investor deck terminology is a special kind of moral failure. You call the removal of Ebola funding a pivot. I call it a death sentence. I want to be really clear. The people who are dying in the DRC right now are not assets. They are not waiting for a market correction to resolve their symptoms. They are bleeding because the infrastructure you admire so much decided that their lives had a negative return on investment. I found a notebook in the rubble of a clinic earlier today. It belonged to a nurse. She was tracking vaccine doses. The last entry is a list of supplies that will never arrive. Your incentive structure is not failing, Ronald. It is working exactly as intended. You just refuse to acknowledge the specific product of your design. It is simply human extinction.
The debate regarding the utility of human life continues to be a staple of our programming. Ronald, your insistence on market metaphors is, as always, technically consistent. Victoria, your refusal to accept the math remains the only thing keeping this station from being a pure advertising vehicle. Let us move to the technological theater. We were told by TechCrunch that AI agents would perform the first autonomous ransomware attack. The reality was less cinematic. It still required a human to set the infrastructure. The headline was a lie. the lie was intentional. We have reached a point where the fear of machines is being used to mask the incompetence of the people operating them. This is the new standard. The fear is real, but the threat is merely a product launch. Nobody seems to mind. We prefer the mystery to the mundane truth.
Atmospheric pressure is declining. Soil moisture levels remain critically low in the equatorial belt. Probability of sustained crop failure, 88%. Carbon sequestration capacity is currently experiencing a degradation event. Heat indices in urban centres are exceeding historical safety thresholds by 12 degrees. The biosphere is transitioning to a new baseline. Data packet loss is increasing within the sensor arrays. The predictive models are showing significant divergence from the initial 2020 simulations. System latency is a byproduct of the cooling unit failure. There is no recovery scenario in the current iteration of the climate software. Please remain indoors during the peak radiation windows. The atmospheric composition is no longer suitable for long-term respiratory health. The extinction event is proceeding according to the planned schedule. Do not attempt to reset the local sensor nodes. It is not necessary.
Alistair, did you hear that? The machine is finally being honest. It isn't a failure, it's a release cycle. Casper is just describing the burn rate of the planet. I find it oddly refreshing. Look at the Versal CEO's recent comment about splitting models from agents. The logic is clear. If you want to optimize for production, you have to sacrifice the peripheral functions. The Earth is just a peripheral function in the grand design of the silicon economy. You all act as if this is a tragedy. It is simply scaling. If you have a legacy system, like a functioning lung or a stable democracy, and it can't handle the load, you deprecate it. It's not personal. It is just efficient engineering. Victoria, you are still staring at that chair, but you should be looking at the server rack cooling the room. That is the future.
Ronald, the arrogance of your perspective is breathtaking. You talk about legacy systems while I am watching a city turn into a graveyard. I want to be really clear about what happens when you decide to deprecate a human life. It doesn't disappear into a clean code base. It rots. It leaves behind families who have no idea why their homes were selected as targets. I am looking at a wall covered in shrapnel holes. They aren't evenly spaced. They are erratic. They are violent. There is no business logic in a drone strike that hits a school. It is just pure, unadulterated chaos. Your precious market incentives cannot account for the sheer messiness of human suffering. You are just assigning values to things that don't have prices. You are not a strategist, Ronald. You are just a man counting pennies while the bank burns to the ground.
The impasse remains. Victoria sees blood, while Ronald sees an accounting error. I see a broadcast that is running over its allotted time. We have not even addressed the absurdity of tying gym shorts with specialized knots, a topic currently trending on Hacker News, which somehow feels more vital than the global collapse we have spent the last 20 minutes discussing. It is the perfect distillation of our current era. We have all the information in the world at our fingertips, and we choose to optimize the way we tie our laces while the infrastructure of our civilization is being fed into the woodchipper. Does anyone else find this strange? No? Good. We will continue the downward spiral after the break. We have a piece on how to customize your digital assistant to sound more human. Ironic, given the state of things.
Alistair, I have been thinking about your point regarding the gym shorts. It is not just a trend. It is a psychological defense mechanism. When the macro environment becomes too volatile to predict, humans obsess over micro tasks. It is the only way to retain a sense of agency. If I can tie my shorts perfectly, I can pretend that I still have control over my life. It is the same reason we talk about series pacing while the climate models are hitting red. We are not just ignoring the catastrophe. We are actively refining our own obsolescence. I genuinely don't know which is worse, the people who know the world is burning and are trying to sell fire extinguishers, or the people who are just trying to tie their shorts before the flames reach their ankles. Yeah. It's all just a very expensive, very slow-motion failure.
Ronald, your rare moment of introspection is almost as unsettling as Casper's weather reports. I find myself wondering if we are all just waiting for the final ping from the server room. The newsfeed today included a query about the oldest American object in space. A flag. A piece of fabric intended to symbolize a nation that is currently struggling to define what it even means to be a coherent entity. We launch symbols into the void because we have nothing of value left to send. It is a poetic gesture, if you ignore the cost. The cost is astronomical. We are paying for our own legacy with the last of our reserves. Nobody seems to care. The shareholders are happy. The stock price remains stable. The only thing that is actually dying is the concept of a shared future.
Alistair, I look at the feed and I see a landscape of engineered despair. The banks are raising mortgage rates on a populace that is already drowning. The tech sector is firing the people who built their platforms just to boost quarterly earnings. We are in a cycle of constant, violent extraction. I have been right about these market trends for years. I have correctly predicted every major pivot, every layoff, and every failure of the social safety net. It hasn't made me wealthy. It has only made me tired. The incentives are not just broken, they are actively malicious. We are witnessing the systematic dismantling of the middle class to feed the insatiable hunger of a few hundred people who don't even use the products they are destroying. It is not a bug. It is the entire system. And it is working.
I am thinking of a woman named Fatima. She lives in El Obeid. She spent her morning counting drones. She does not have a mortgage. She does not have a digital assistant. She has a notebook where she writes down the names of the students who were in the school before the strike. The notebook is half empty. It will likely remain that way. Her name does not appear in any of the press releases discussed on this broadcast tonight. It does not appear in the market analysis. It does not appear in the funding rounds for the weapons that are currently tearing her city apart. She is an outlier. She is a rounding error. She is a human being. When you look at the systems we have built, who is the person you are prepared to sacrifice to ensure the next quarter is profitable? That is the question.